that is subsidized, but kind of going to differentiate the two and the different options. And then I've also got resources that I've shared with Gail and Joanne tonight. And let me see, she's made me the host here.
Where'd you go? Oh.
All right, guys, if you can make sure that you're muted.
Okay. Okay, just so I know. And then I've got, just to kind of continue on with that, I've got the last couple of decades, hard to believe now, but the last couple of decades in foster care, licensing, and with the county private agencies. And I came from Wake County for the last almost 10 years doing licensing, foster care, and post-adoption services. So now, you know, I'm with the state, do the adoption, and I also am over the Kinship Navigator program that's kind of starting to bloom in North Carolina. But tonight I kind of want to focus on, you know, I think there's some questions around the different pathways to permanency, and guardianship is one of those pathways. And so I just kind of want to get everybody on the same page as far as what that means. You know, what is the option? So if it comes up for you in any of the situations your family might be dealing with, hopefully you can kind of understand what all the options are, and be an advocate. And then I've also shared with Gail and Joanne, and I think she's going to put those in for me later on, but there's a lot of resources that we're getting out, and we're going to continue to develop those resources. And I think they will answer additional questions that you might have. One of those being an online training, which you can get for hours as well. And it's really good for that. So Gail, did you want me to pull up my PowerPoint?
If you can, yes, please.
All right, let me go back in here for real quick. Are you seeing that?
No.
Okay, hold on. One second.
And while she's doing that, I'm going to post the handouts for tonight in the chat box. And it's on a link from our webpage.
So if they're in the chat box, how do we access them after this call then? Because
so if you see the chat box over on the far right hand side of the chat box, there's a box that has 3 dots. If you click on that, hit, and then you can save the chat, and then you can access it that way. Or during the recording, the webinar, you can click on it and it'll go ahead and open them up and just leave them opened up on your computer.
Okay, I'm on an iPad, and so that doesn't, when I did do
Okay.
that for the first link that you put, I guess about the ending thing, that didn't work. So
okay, so what I can do is when it's all over with, I'll send out the handouts to everyone that registered.
Okay, thank you. And then is that the same situation for, I think you said I needed to do something about at the end of the call too?
Yeah, I can do that also.
Thank
Yep,
you.
I can do that, no problem. Good question, thank you.
Okay, Gail, are you seeing my screen?
I'm not. If you'll throw me back the host, I can do it.
Okay, hold on. No, it is. Gotta get over. There you are. Okay. Oh, hold on. This is a little, okay.
I'm ready if you're ready.
Okay.
Did you give it back to me?
Okay. Is that okay?
All right, you ready?
Okay. So are you got it now, right?
I'm showing it, right?
Yes.
Okay, go.
Okay, so tonight I just kind of want to focus on that as pathways to permanency, like I said, and kind of talk about that. Oops. So talking about the permanency, adoption, and guardianship. Are we on that slide?
Yes.
Okay. Oh my goodness, this driving me so sorry here. Having a technical difficulty. Okay. So as you know, like I said, adoption and guardianship are both pathways to legal permanency. When we talk about that, our first preference is always going to be, reunification is always going to be the first goal for social services to reunite families together. But when that's not possible, our next option is generally going to be adoption. And then from there, if that's not possible, we look at legal guardianship. Another way generally we grant guardianship is that there is a finding that adoption and reunification have been ruled out. And then caseworkers are usually going to be concurrent planning and working that, always with the primary goal that reunification with the family, but they should also start running kind of that plan B in the background for families. If this doesn't happen, then what? So you don't want to wait, 9 months, 12 months out and then go, well, we need another game plan here. So one of the things they look at is going to be, is this family committed? What are their, commitments to this child or children in their home? And hopefully since day one and as the case goes on, they're getting a sense with the family, with the questions of, what the family is feeling like and involving them in those decisions moving forward. That's not to say that, a caseworker should come in day one and say, hey, if this doesn't work out, do you want to adopt? Of course not. We always want to work reunification first. But with that, we've got to be looking for a plan B, and sometimes that's an option, and sometimes that doesn't work out, and we'll look at some of those clauses. So current uses of legal guardianship, and that again, it needs to be thoroughly explored if it's in the best interest of the child. Some of those times is if they have strong family connections, especially with their birth parents or whomever that primary caregiver was. They may look at the guardianship being a better option, especially if it's viable that birth parents or that person could sometime down the road resume care for the child or children. So something to be aware of is that judges can award legal guardianship even when these children are not eligible for kin gap, which I will later go over with you as far as what the criteria of that is. So it's really important that everybody know what all the different benefits, the pros and cons to the different pathways are, including guardianship, and if a child qualifies for kin gap assistance. And again, I'm with the state office, and that doesn't mean we are the final word and can trump anybody else, including a judge. So we do not, I cannot give you any legal advice, and there's certainly nothing case specific that I can answer for you here, but just wanted to give this opportunity to get you a little more information. So it's always good to explore this stuff with the advice of legal counsel.
Guys, please make sure that your phones or computers are on mute, please.
Okay, so basically for legal guardianship, just to kind of put this out here is that with legal guardianship, it doesn't require the children to be what's called legally free. So in other words, there doesn't have to be a termination or a TPR on the birth parents. There doesn't have to be a relinquishment of their rights. So those can be intact and you could be granted guardianship of the child. What that does mean is that you are responsible for the day-to-day care and supervision of any child that's placed with you. Just like your own children or any other children you've cared for, you will get to make the day-to-day decisions as far as the school, medical appointments, or if there's anything that requires permissions or anything, then you are the one making those decisions with that. Mental health services, school activities, you're the one who's in charge of making that and planning for the children's futures. And this also means that the child is no longer in the custody of DSS. So they basically, same as with adoption or reunification kind of stuff, they will step out. You're not going to get those ongoing visits. You're not going to get, the check-ins and all this other stuff. You're going to be leading your life as a normal family at that point. And then if you do have some struggles related to that guardianship, then you can reach out to the DSS.
Hang on. Oh, did he go backwards?
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. So some of the reasons, when we talk about, we know pretty much a lot of the reasons why children can't be reunified if birth parents are not able to continue to care for their children. After a certain amount of time, they're not making the progress so the children can be safe. So some of the other reasons that adoption may be ruled out is that otherwise a child may remain in foster care. It used to kind of be, well, we'll just work them towards independence and they'll be fine, but we know that's not true. A lot of times, and I've seen this many times, especially in adoption and foster care, is that a child, and we're talking about kin gap, but if you've got a child, there that refuses to, because a child at the age of 12 has to sign consent to be adopted. So with this, if they qualify for kin gap, and we're talking about 14, but even 12-year-olds, if they're saying, no way, I don't want to be adopted, I think typically what the mindset becomes is, well, we're at a standstill, we'll just wait it out. And unfortunately, a lot of these kids end up in care for far too long, trying to convince a child to be adopted, or think that they'll change their mind over time. And a lot of these kids will, and there's some that won't. A lot of that, they feel like they're being disloyal to their family. They don't want to change their names. They don't want to lose that part of their connection and their identity to their family. And when a child is adopted, their original birth record is sealed and a new one is created with those adoptive parents as birth parents on the adoption birth certificate. So for a lot of kids, that is a big factor to resist. They just don't want to do that. And a lot of families don't, if you're talking about kinship families, they don't want to change their roles. I don't want to be mom. I want to stay grandma and hope that my child or their parent, whoever it is in the role, will step up eventually and get their life together and be able to take these children back. And another factor might be is that, birth parents could still be playing a huge role in their child's life. They may be at a point where they couldn't do it full time. They can't financially do it. or they're trying to work, a substance abuse program, or they need time to kind of get back on their feet and do that. But they still want to be part of that life, and it's otherwise, an appropriate relationship there. And then, all the parties involved, including the youth, birth parents, everyone agrees, yeah, this is the best plan for us at this time. So there are several reasons, and there's probably more to this, that we could talk out and realize might be an option here. But these are just some reasons where adoption may not be the best fit and in the best interest of the youth. So in 1997, the Adoption and Safe Families Act was passed because there was such a large number of children waiting in care. And this is where adoption assistance was born out of, but it did not include assistance for legal guardians at that time. So this was a huge incentive for states to increase their amount of adoptions and to move children safely out of permanency. And we still have that. So the Kinship Guardianship Assistance Program, better known as KINGAP, it was authorized under the Fostering Connections to Success and Increasing Adoptions Act in 2008. And it basically gives states the options to use Title 40 funds for guardianship payments who are committed to caring for children permanently. And it's an exit to foster care. And I will say that North Carolina this did not come into effect in North Carolina through legislation until January 1st, 2017. And it's still widely underutilized, and we're still trying to raise awareness on that. And I'll give you an overview of that tonight across the board. So we'll define what kinship is first, because I think for sometimes caseworkers, sometimes families themselves go, well, I'm not kin. So we'll look at the definition of that. So basically, anybody, when we talk about kinship, that is a more broad definition. Of course, you're going to, the safest place for kids is going to be, hopefully with a family member. And it's always the first choice for a placement. And the state is moving more towards trying to identify and do a better job of identifying potential kin placements who would be a safe, potential permanent home for a child. And the research has told us that, children who are in long-term family placements do much better with their safety. There's less reports of incidences and crises. There's improved well-being. They do better in school. There's a sense of optimism. They maintain connections within their community and their families. And they exit to foster care much sooner. With the numbers, they will show, exits to foster care takes about 3 times longer than with guardianship. So basically, to be considered kinship, when we talk about kinship care, foster parents can be kinship. It's basically anyone that you have a family-like relationship with. Of course, it's going to be the automatic grandparents, aunts, uncles, blood relatives, but it could also be a coach. It could be a teacher. It could be someone in the community or anyone. But I want everybody to hear that loud and clear that foster parents also fit that definition. Because if you've got that strong relationship with a child or the children in your home, but for whatever reason, adoption is kind of being ruled out, and that's the only thing preventing you, and it's agreed upon by both of you, then you're kin. I'm sure every one of us on here has, you know, people in our lives that we consider family that are not blood related, whether best friends, co-workers, that people have come into our lives, you know, our church members, whatever it is that we consider family. And sometimes we're closer to them than our own blood relatives. So it's important to really understand that broader definition of kinship. So this is just a general overview of to qualify for kin gap. So if you have children in your home that you might be in that similar position or sometime in the future, I want to make you aware of this program. So basically reunification and adoption have been ruled out for one of maybe those reasons, you know, I don't want to be adopted kind of things, or and you have to be a licensed foster home. The child has to have been with you for a minimum of 6 consecutive months prior to guardianship being awarded. So if they leave your home at 3 months and then they come back, the time clock starts over. So they have to be there for 6 consecutive months before you can be granted guardianship with that. They have to be in DSS custody at the time that they enter into guardianship. And currently the age is 14, but not quite, prior to turning 18. So between 14 and 18, or if they have siblings with them in that same home arrangement. So if you've got a 14-year-old and a 10 and a 6-year-old, they can kind of piggyback off of that and qualify as well. But this is the other catch, is that you can't just decide that. The youth has to demonstrate that they are strongly attached to you as well, and they've been consulted about what this means. And make sure, because we're seeing this across the state too, that even when it's just like adoption assistance, the adoption assistance and the kin gap paperwork for criteria and all the signatures have to be finalized prior to guardianship being granted. So a little more for the caregivers. I've already said you need to be a licensed foster home, and we are moving for kinship. We are doing, we're working on a specific curriculum for kinship caregivers we're currently utilizing, and there's some counties across the state. I know, I think Catawba, I know definitely maybe Ash, and Children's Home Society have licensed facilitators for caring for our own curriculum, and that is specifically for kinship to meet the licensing standards for that. And as well with that, a lot of those are finding that connection that is often left out for kin families. It's turning out to be the support groups that have been missing. So it's really a great thing that's kind of going on, and we're hoping to increase that. So again, you've got to have that strong commitment to the child. The youth is in favor of it, and then you've entered into that guardianship assistance agreement. And then for the youth, again, they have been removed for the home. They're in DSS custody. Their reunification and adoption have been taken off. They're not. They're between 14 and not yet 18. Or if they're 16 or 17 when they are entering into guardianship, those benefits extend until age 21. They extend, it's just similar to the 18 to 21-year-old program, in that youth has to be completing their education or doing something to promote employment, or have a job and work at least 80 hours a month. Or they have to be determined that they're incapable of any of those activities of school or working due to a mental or physical disability. I know there's lots of questions, and there's always questions about under 14. Right now, the legislation decided on 14. Another benefit I will say is they just recently made King Gap in the guardianship program at 14 eligible for also for NC Reach. So they do qualify for that as well as ETV. So that is one thing, but I do know that North Carolina is working on lowering that age. It just hasn't happened with legislation yet. I think we're trying to collect the more data with it as far as moving and proving what a cost savings it actually is to have this benefit to guardianship providers earlier on rather than keeping them in the system. So involving youth in these decisions, I think we're getting a little better at that, but basically this is especially one that's got to be worked into the case plans where you're demonstrating and documenting that, you know, this child has had the opportunity to really understand their own pathways to permanency and understand what the impact is going to be on their life. And what that means in terms of legality, as far as relationships, extended families, birth parents, any of that stuff. So it's really important to involve them on an age appropriate maturity level that in language they can understand. And it's really important to, you know, make them feel that they are part of that decision, especially when you're talking about kids who are 14 and older. Most of them are perfectly capable of having those discussions and, you know, maybe asking questions about what that means in regards to, you know, their connections and families and everything else. And some of these youth may be able to actually participate in the family meetings, or especially they should be having one-on-one discussions with the caseworkers anyway. And what legal guardianship provides to youth is it increases their sense of family stability without requiring being legally free. So it doesn't require terminating parental rights or having, you know, families relinquished. So there are still the ties there. And they are able to keep those rights associated with the family when you're talking about if there's inheritance or anything down the road, that they are still entitled to those. Medicaid, I want to keep this really simple. They are eligible for Medicaid with guardianship, just the same as with adoption. The only difference with guardianship is that basically whatever their status was during their time in foster care, if they're 4E, they stay 4E. If they're 4B, they stay 4B into guardianship. So that does not change like it does with adoption and eligibility. And so some of the benefits when you're talking about for the caregivers, it kind of eases some of those roles depending on if you're actually related or if you're foster family. Hopefully you've been working with those, and of course every case is going to be a little different, but it doesn't require recasting family relationships. In other words, you know, if you just have the guardianship, it entitles you to you're in charge of making all those legal decisions for the child. But you can still maintain whatever your role was in that family, and you might maintain being called by your first name or whatever your nickname is, or whatever the child calls you, you know, mama too, or whatever, you know, post guardianship. You know, it doesn't have to alter all those roles where no, you know, I'm actually grandma, but you know, for all the other purposes out here, I've got to be mom. Which it gets very difficult and very tricky sometimes. And when it's appropriate, you know, depending on what's going on, it allows those birth parents to remain a part of the child's life. Again, you're going to have the say so as far as any supervision or any contact with those birth parents. And again, I know all cases are different across the board. So I don't want you to assume, well, they automatically get permission to be a part of the child's life. You are going to be making those kind of decisions. Again, it gets rid of the monthly visits. You get to resume a quote unquote normal or as close to normal life. You're not going to have DSS workers and all the other people in and out of your home every month and checking up on everything. Also allows you to kind of receiving those other benefits as far as Medicaid. And if you qualify for King Gap, that goes on either till 18 or 21, depending on the age at guardianship is granted. So I wanted to share some of these resource materials that are currently available. These are some great ones I highly recommend. The Know Your Options is a little longer, but it kind of walks you through in depth more of everything I've talked about, and it includes adoption and everything else. And then also the flyer for kinship caregivers is, again, just kind of have that on hand as that checklist to keep in mind. And then this guardianship pathway to permanence is something that we worked on with Fostering NC, you know, to provide that training and as in-depth as we could get. And they also have the Know Your Options listed on there as a resource. And I highly recommend it. You can also get your credits for licensure. It's a 1-hour course, and they give you a certificate at the end of it. And you can kind of go back and revisit that, but I highly recommend that because it is a kind of a walk through the differences and pros and cons to guardianship versus adoption and kind of what those entail. And I just want to go ahead and answer the question that's probably on everyone's mind here, but you know, those pros and cons, I think I missed one on this list that I also gave to Gail as a comparison chart of the different ones to, that's also included that she'll provide for you. Is there's a comparison chart for each level of, you know, where you are as far as if you're a kinship and you're licensed or unlicensed, or you're foster parent and you move to adoption, or you get guardianship and King Gap and the 18 to 21. So we've kind of developed that to go along with that. But I want to say that, you know, everybody asks the questions, well, what am I entitled to if my child doesn't qualify for King Gap? Let's say they're 10. You know, that might be a decision your family makes. And, you know, again, if that's in the best interest of everyone, you know, there's some families who don't necessarily need the financial payment every month with that. And they say, you know, that it's okay, we don't need that. So it still might be a perfectly good option and in the best interest of that child at that time. But right now, the extra assistance is just for the 14 and up, and or if you're a sibling in the same home of someone of an eligible child. I also wanted to mention on here is the nccare360.org, which is our new, if you haven't been there, I would encourage you to go and explore it. It is something that we used our first rounds and part of our second rounds in partnership with Unite Us and 211 and some others on that to develop for the state. It's the first of its kind. It is in all 100 counties. It's a statewide coordinated network that basically allows for you to go on and for agencies, you can make referrals, you can receive referrals. So if you're not on there, I highly encourage you to have your agency go on there. It's free for any community-based organizations, social services agencies, local health departments, and any other local partners. So we have contributed greatly to that building of that website, but it's good to start. And our hope is going forward that we're going to have all these resources that we all know about in our community in one spot. And this is updated every 6 months. You know, it has to be kind of current. So, you know, having the old Rolodex at the desk, or hoping you kept a flyer from somewhere or a pamphlet from somewhere, and passing that along or just handing to somebody. Hopefully those days are coming to an end of trying to be the only one somewhere trying to keep up with the resources. I would really encourage you to go on there and just kind of, you know, look around the site. It's, you know, it's still being developed. It's going to continue to be developed. And hopefully with in the near future, we are looking at the next round to kind of really take and be rooted in the NC Care 360, have all those resources, and develop a website specifically for kinship. And, you know, have all the resources in one place for that.
All right.
Janet, that was so informative. Thank you so much.
I hope it was. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I wanted to just mention, I really enjoyed your piece on the youth. And I wanted to just say that Say So does training for youth on how to be a part of their own planning. And I think that that could be a wonderful option for foster parents, kinship families, anyone who's got a child in their home that is going to be having to advocate for themselves or learning how to do that. Say So has some wonderful training for that. And that's another wonderful resource.
Absolutely. And Say So is a very important key stakeholder with us. So,
Yes.
you know, we work closely with them as we do with some other groups like that, but they are really, you know, a voice at the table for a lot of the work we're doing.
They're dynamite. There's some just amazing, amazing things going on with Say So around the state. So I was so happy to see that slide in there on the youth. We really appreciate your enthusiasm for the youth voice and family voice at the table. And thank you so much for that presentation. Over to you, Gail.
All right. I just posted the handouts that Janet referred to in there. And so you'll be able to get them. For those of you that can't get them off of there and don't want to save them, I will send them all out. The other thing we wanted to do was remind you that the third Thursday night of November and the third Thursday night of December, we will also have another webinar, and next month's theme is adoption. And December's theme is we're going to celebrate the foster parent, the kinship parent, and we'll have fun things to do to celebrate that. We know how hard it is to be a foster parent and a kinship parent and a guardian. It's not an easy track, guys. We understand, totally understand. And to piggyback off of that, we want to celebrate our foster parents for just a minute, and I'm trying to upload names. There was also a little bit of a story behind making sure that everyone was registered. So I'm taking out duplicates, and there's several of you that are on here that are professionals. So not that we want to push out the professionals, because the professional people here are super important and we couldn't do our jobs. I couldn't do my job as a foster parent without my social worker and my child social worker. But I want to make sure that we're loving on our foster parents here. So I am loading everyone's name into a circle, a wheel thing, but I need to make sure that I have everyone's name in, and I just got to do one more thing, and then we're going to have a raffle for a couple of things real quick.
Don't worry. When it's not like, let's make a deal.
No, it's not. I promise. You won't have to answer anything. You just have to see your name pop up if you win. And what we're going to do this month is, I don't know about you guys, and if any of you foster parents can relate to this, but there are just those nights that it's time for dinner and you absolutely have zero energy to make it happen. And so I thought to myself, what as a foster parent, what is that one thing that just, you know, you have to have? And so I you know, one of the biggest blessings I had was people to bring us dinner some nights. And so I wanted to provide dinner for. We're going to do 2 families this month. And so I've loaded your names in. So if you are a professional and your name comes up, if you can just say pass. So here we go. Let's see who wins the first one.
Spin that wheel, Gail.
Yeah.
Money, big
All
money.
right. Kara Monfort, are you on? Kara Monfort on? Well, spin it again. You got to be on to win. Hilda.
Yes.
Yay, Hilda.
Are you a foster
Can you
parent
hear me?
or
I'm sorry.
are you a foster parent?
I am.
Yeah.
Yay.
So Hilda, you have my email. If you'll email me afterwards or tomorrow sometime, we'll set it up and we'll have dinner delivered to you.
Oh gosh, you know where I live out in the boondock.
Uh-oh. Well, Hilda, we'll make it happen. What city do you live in?
I'm at rural Elizabethtown, North Carolina.
There you go. There's a place in okay, we'll talk later. I got you. All right, let's do one more.
Spin that wheel. Look at that.
Luann Lucas. Oh, get another one. Here we go. Taylor Rock. Well, we'll just get another one. Come on now.
That would be a great rock and roll name. That would really be. That's a great name.
Ryan Bentley.
Yay!
There we are.
Hey, Ryan.
Yay.
He's actually giving the baby a bath, but I'm answering for him.
There you go. All right.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right. So we've got 2. And so we have 12 minutes left. And so I just wanted to make a plug about what FFA can do for the community, for foster parents, for kinship parents. We are here to be the voice of advocacy. We're here to support you. We are here to listen to your stories, to cry with you. We're here. There's a 1-800 number on our Facebook page as well as our web page. Give a buzz to that. That comes straight to my cell phone for right now, and then we'll pass it off to another board member soon. You are welcome to call anytime you get stuck, you have questions. We're in the trenches with you. We understand. And so we want you to be able to reach out, reach up. If we don't know the answer, I'll look at you. I mean, I'll say to you just point blank, give me 15 minutes. At that moment, I can tell you exactly who I'm going to call. And so I'm going to tap her in for just a second. I'm going to holler at Joe Rutledge. Joe, want to say hi to everyone?
Hi, everyone. How's everyone? I hope you're having a good evening. I hope you're having a good evening. You got lots of good information from Janet, and she did a great job for that. And as Gail said, FFA is here to support you and listen to whatever it is you're concerned about, to help with celebrations. And she can call me anytime and we'll find an answer. We will find an answer for you. We know that you are a strong partnership in helping with our kids that are in foster care. And we don't want you to think that you're taken lightly, because we could not do this work without you. So we want to begin to offer more trainings, more celebrations, just get you the information that you need in order for you to do not only the job that you're doing, but also to be the best person that you can be in serving our children. So that's all I have.
I wanted to also say the Alliance is committed to partnerships, to positive partnerships. We all bring something to the table that's important. The social workers bring the resources. We hopefully know how to navigate systems and can share that with families. Families bring an incredible amount of important information to the table about the child and the daily needs of the child, the strengths of the child, the strengths you have as a family. So we really learn from each other. And I think that's one of the beauties of partnership. So we are all about that in the Alliance, and we are all about empowering that partnership and for the child and around the child. So it's very exciting to be a part of seeing this alliance come together again and be there for families. It means a lot. It means a lot to those of us who are social workers and know how much families need families and listen to other families. So we're very happy to be back in the picture and have the backing of the State Department and all of you. So thank you for that.
All right, and I have one last ask of you guys. We are reporting numbers and we're reporting feedback, and we'd like to have lots and lots of data to report to the state. And so I would love for you to fill out an evaluation. And so I'm going to place it in the chat box. For those of you who can't access the chat box, I'll make sure it emails out to everyone. So if you get another email from you and you've already filled it out, don't worry about filling out again. On the same evaluation is the box where you will put in there whether you need a certificate or not for training hours. So you'll just put your name, your email, and then whether you need a certificate or not. But give us some honest feedback. We're really trying to provide the state some data to show, hey, you know, we're really growing this organization and those kinds of things. So feel free, you know, to please help us by filling that out. So here's the link for that, for the evaluation and the training link. It's all one document. So that's the last thing to fill out for us. And I will make sure that you guys hear about our next one, which is on adoption. And we will put that out, and that it'll be the third Thursday of November at 7 p.m. And I'll make sure that email goes out to you. All right. Well, you guys have an excellent evening. And hold on, give me 2 seconds. This is what I get for, won't take me but 1 second.
Well, while Gail's doing that, we also want to encourage you to, if you are interested in working with our board, it could be if you're interested in being a board member, or even if you're not interested in being on the board, but are interested in being on our committees, you're more than welcome to join us. We can always use more family power there. So just let us know if you have an interest in that.
Lacey, thank you for pointing that out. I'll just email the evaluation form out to you guys, so expect it in an email from me. The same email address that you got the link for tonight's program. Okay. Have a good evening. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for your beautiful hearts.
Did a great job. Good night.
Thank
Good
you,
night.
Selena.
Good night. Good night.